Hello, my ladies and gents. And I'm using that very loosely because I know how some of y'all misbehave. Real quick. Hey, Crow and Cassie and Selena. Let's see, David. I saw Michael in here. Michael. And Saber, what's in here? Where are you? Hello, my wonderfuls. Hope everybody's having a good night. Let's see. Since we've already got so many people, we don't have to wait. And most of y'all know who I'm interviewing, which I'm so excited. So we are so excited to have Joe Vitale with Entity Seven Paranormal. Boom.
Hey.
A little slow on the draw there, honey. What can I say? So, hey, everybody. Of course. I'm sorry about the mic. I apologize about the mic. 100%. A new one's being sent. And of course, it won't arrive until Sunday. So I'm so sorry. So sorry. And my husband, well, y'all all know Ed, so he's going to be running down here trying to fix it. So 1 second. It's always something in this house. I'm telling you, it's something in this house.
You're good now, honey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm telling you, I've got a visitor and it likes to monkey around. All right. So, hello, guys. Look at all these wonderful people. So, Joe, let's go to the tried and true questions. What got you interested in the paranormal and how old were you?
Okay, so what interested me with the paranormal? Okay, so I wasn't exactly interested in it at one point in time. I was a very, preteen, early teen years, lived in a home, had the activity there was bad. Whatever was there was not kind. That was scary. So having these experiences, a lot of it, looking back on it, a lot of it was very much psychological. And through that whole experience, I carried that with me because the psychological aspect of paranormal isn't really talked too much about. I find it very, very interesting. So what happened was we were experiencing a lot of really negative paranormal stuff. Notice I am trying to dodge the word demon.
Yeah, I
know. So my experiences with it myself was how can I best describe this? Because if I do describe it the way I'm about to, that makes it sound like I have a mental illness, which is something that's a key factor within the field. Now, I'm saying that doesn't mean don't take it as a negative.
No.
But a lot of it was just something in my head, something talking, but you can't hear it with your ears. It seems as if you're hearing it with your ears, but you're really not. And just these doubtful thoughts. And of course, there were some physical things that happened. I literally got ripped out of my bed one night. I could feel whatever was there was in that room, and I was scared. And I mean, it just ripped me out of bed like I was nothing. And I tell you, I jumped back into that bed and I pulled the sheets over my head and woke up the next morning. Yep. There were also plenty of times, though, where, again, we're young. It was just, I have brothers, I have a sister. All of us were experiencing weird things. And not much was said, about it. We didn't talk about it or anything like that. I kind of grew up in a home, too. Well, there's no kind of about it. I grew up with watching like a lot of UFO stuff, scary movies, like movies made for TV about like paranormal stuff. So even as a preteen, I knew who Ed and Lorraine Warren were, but they weren't exactly cast in the best light either most of the time. So my parents, they knew something was going on, but nobody was communicating this with one another. Finally, it was my stepbrother who said something to my stepmom. Hey, this is kind of going on, and then everybody's kind of like, okay, we'll see what's going on. I think what really put things in perspective, especially for my parents, was my dad. He was actually attacked. He was laying in bed. He got pinned down. He had these bite marks in his wrist, his legs, and his whole neck. It just looked like something, almost like an animal just attacked his neck. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, Dad, what happened? It's like, he's just trying to play it off.
Right.
But as a kid, you can't overhear your parents talking about things. And then that's when, my dad and stepmom, they were talking about what had happened and what to do about it. I never could understand why my stepmother never wanted to be alone. My father built a room in the basement for us boys. Before that happened, it was just a normal basement. My stepmom, she would be in the basement, putting together this big tall house. And she always wanted somebody there with her. We could never understand why. So, so I knew something was going on. I had a feeling, she knows, but I didn't want to say anything. So from having all of these experiences, there are a lot of experiences, and I don't really go too much into detail about all of those experiences because there was a lot.
Right. Well, it's personal.
Right. So my parents ended up getting a hold of somebody, and they come out and to get rid of it. Now, I wasn't there to experience that whole thing. My stepbrother and my sister, they went with their grandparents. Me and my brothers, we went over to my mom's while this was going on. It took them 3 attempts to get rid of whatever was in the house out. Now, the last time it happened, I remember coming back and seeing some cracks in the wall. A picture frame shattered, and kind of like, what happened? Like, was there an earthquake? What happened? And we realized, this thing threw a fit, but it didn't last long. And my dad, my stepmom, they would talk about kind of how embarrassed they were because here's this guy now going outside into the backyard.
Oh no!
And the neighbors looking like, what's going on over here? So now there's still things that do happen in that house. No, we don't live in that house anymore. Now people ask, well, what happened? Why was it haunted? It wasn't built on any kind of sacred ground. Nothing. My grandfather actually had that house built, and he actually did brick work when they were building the house. It was a custom home. It was a family member who had lived there, an uncle, and he got into some dark stuff and basically invited.
Yep, open that door. Yep.
Yeah. So from there, only a few of my friends knew what was going on. So a friend of mine, Bill, he was actually making fun of me. He was just making fun of me, just poking fun about the situation. We had went to our local restaurant as teenagers because, we thought we were adults and we were going to drink coffee. And this restaurant served free coffee, so people would take advantage of that. They stopped that after a while. And he's teasing me, and behind me are a group of investigators. I had no idea. I just knew that there were people behind me. And one of the guys got up because a friend of mine, he got up. He had to use the bathroom on his way there. He, was talking to some other people. This guy come over to me. He's, I'm what, 14, if that. barely 14. He starts asking me questions. I'm like, who are you?
Right.
This is the first thing I'm thinking is, does this guy own a van and, has free
Stranger
candy, free
danger.
candy, right? So he wanted to know, and I honestly did not want to talk about it. I had no idea who this guy was, and it's bad enough I got a friend of mine kind of poking fun at me about it. So he said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll take you with us, and because we want to know, we want to hear about your experiences. We think we can learn something from that. I'm like, no. So about 2 weeks later, I see him again. This time at a gas station. I was with my dad, and they come walking up to me again. Bill, he's like, hey, seen you, over at this place. Hey, the offer still stands. And to me, at that point in time, he seemed kind of pushy.
Right.
Although he probably wasn't. So I'm like, oh, maybe if I just give this dude my phone number, he'll leave me alone. I was thinking I'd never hear back. I thought that was it. Well, that weekend, there's a phone call, and my dad's like, there's some guy on the phone for you. I'm like, okay. And then he's like, hey, this is Bill, seeing you at this restaurant and at the gas station. We're going to go to this house this weekend, and we're going to investigate it. We've been there before. We think it'll be safe. And then, you can talk to us about, what was going on in the house. I'm like, oh, crap. Okay. So then I give him the address and everything like that. Now I got to figure out what the hell I'm going to tell my parents.
Oh, gosh.
What am I supposed to say? Hey, I'm going to go home. I don't know. What was I supposed to say? So I just told my dad, hey, I'm going to go spend the night at a friend's house. The parents are going to come pick me up.
Oh, gosh.
And I went. And I tell you what, I was nervous. I was scared because I knew what I experienced. Mm-hmm. Growing up, there are people in my family who are very, very religious. One of which is the Bible thumper of the family. So everything was demons. There are no ghosts; they do not exist. They're all demons. Mm-hmm. Here I am being pumped full of things that the devil does. This is basically telling me how powerful the devil is. But all you got to do is ask for Jesus. It's like, that's great, because I haven't heard anything that you said that how tough Jesus is.
Didn't help me.
So I went there and I was scared, but nothing happened. I went with them again. Nothing happened, and I went to different homes and telling them, again, kind of telling my stories, repeating myself, stuff like that, and nothing. A few months later, I was with them, and they said, all right, Joe, Bill, go investigate this room. I'm like, wait, what? I'm actually doing this? What? Really? And I was nervous. Nothing happened. For months, nothing. I didn't experience anything, and I thought, maybe we're just crazy. Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, was they were teaching me, and I didn't know it, had no idea. Mm-hmm. I was learning without realizing that I was learning. And they just kept, they had me in the group. Now, there was somebody within that group that took issue with that because I was very young. They range anywhere from their 20s on all the way up to their 50s. Mm-hmm. So one person did take issue with that, but she got over it. Right. But and then it probably took almost a year actually before I actually experienced something outside of my home. And mm-hmm. I was like, holy crap, that was cool. Do it again. And they kind of laughed about that. And I started to lose my fear of that. And, they're saying, look, I'm not trying to disrespect, anybody in your family, anything like that, but it's not all demons. It's not any of that. Mm-hmm. So that's basically how I got started. And, I started with residentials and, I learned and I continued to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 2016, shortly after my mom passed away, when I had this newfound freedom of basically going almost wherever I want. And that's when I started hitting the bigger locations, Waverly Hills, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, just being able to like travel to all kinds of different states, go into these different locations, and that's been interesting too. I've had quite the adventure, but I think
Yes, you have.
the thing that I enjoy the most, even though I'm not like a people kind of person, I like my space. I do enjoy uh, meeting new people. I do
Mm-hmm.
enjoy investigating with other people. Um, I'll either do it by myself or I'm with a small group of people. Sometimes a large group of people. Depends on what's going on. But yeah, I mean, I've investigated a lot of places alone. People are like, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
why?
I mean, I went over your YouTube channel and just your YouTube channel, which, I've heard you talk about, there's a lot more. Just what I found was 21 locations you've been to.
And
21.
that's not all of them.
Right.
Some of them for various reasons, I wasn't able to put up on YouTube.
Right.
So
I mean, because I did see that you did do some private residential, but we're going to talk about that because it's more to come because we're going to touch on that. And where is it? Where is it? I saw a question. Sabra wants to know, what pendant are you wearing?
actually, my ex-wife had this made not just for me, but for my son and my daughter. It is actually my mom's fingerprint.
Oh, that's lovely.
And what happened was my daughter, she was just married, and even for Christmas wanted to do this. I don't know what took her so long, but she ended up doing it. I found my birth certificate had my mom's thumbprints on it, and we wanted to get my mom's fingerprints. It was supposed to be for the kids, because my kids and my mom, they were really close. So just this past Christmas, I was surprised by this. So yeah, it's my
That's
mom's
wonderful.
thumbprint. So
She's always with your heart, close to your heart, always. That's
right.
awesome.
So and then yeah, so my daughter, she wore one at did she? Or I believe she had it on her for her wedding. So
And I have to tell you, everybody's talking about how they love your new haircut. Everybody's talking about it. Oh my God. Everybody's freaking out over your haircut.
well, normally it is this short normally, but we went to the Conjuring house and we went during the pandemic. That was like 2 years ago. No, it was a year ago. I don't even know. Oh my lord. Just like a few days prior to that, that was the last time I had a haircut. And I wasn't actually going to grow it long. It just because of the whole pandemic thing, and I was kind of lazy. Just let it grow long. But then I intended on actually keeping it long. But what I want to do is grow it long enough to be able to donate. But
Right.
unfortunately, I was not able to do that. It just wasn't long enough. And I didn't want to look like a bum in my daughter's wedding. So.
Well, Sabra says you look like a hellraiser. Crow says he keeps McDonald's arches around his neck.
I love Crow.
See what I everybody's ladies and gents, but I use that so loosely. So loosely. Okay, so how long have you been investigating?
27 years on and off.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I'm like, jeez, am I that old?
I'm older than you. I am very close to that door. I'm 48. I'm not ready to turn 50. And then, of course, my husband, he's 4 years older than me, so he's already in his 50s. It ain't no big deal. No.
Yeah, well, I'm just a few years behind you.
Nothing like growing up in the 80s.
Well, oh, Lord. When it comes to 50s, ladies first.
What is that? Oh, okay. Dory says she's just popping in to show support and to drive safely. Yes, people. The reason why his room looks barren is he is leaving our side of the country and going to the other side, as you all know.
It's gonna be a wild ride all the way around. Going there, being there. It's a big change, but you know, Matt and I, along with Rocky and Dante, we are working on things for not just the channel, but streaming services. So, in order to be able to get everyone together, because they're all on the same side of the country, and I'm the odd one out until tonight. So, but in order for us to do what we need to do, I need to be out there.
Yeah.
It's exciting at the same time, a little sad. My kids are over here,
Right.
and my daughter just being married. There's gonna be grandbabies at some point.
You're gonna get that calling back, but at least, I mean, to me, if we're gonna talk about paranormal, I think hauntings are different on the west side than here. Here, it's more savage. When you're heading towards the west coast, a little bit more brutal.
So I guess I can say this. I've always said that when it comes to anything paranormal, you want to be on the east side. That's where you want to be. Now, again, I've been to a lot of places. There are some places where I've been to which nothing, and it's just the way it is. And I can go back again, nothing, or maybe third time, a little something. But it was funny because we went to Virginia City to film, and Matt's telling me, "Oh, you're gonna love it. The two places that we're going to, really active, da 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 da." And I'm always, I'm like, okay, this is cool. But at the same time, I'm expecting nothing to happen. That's just how I go into things. I'm not expecting anything. Not much. But I was also at the same time, I was kind of like, yeah, he kind of owes me one, because I had went to Benton Farms. I had stayed at Benton Farms for 2 nights because we were filming another show. This was quite a few years ago, and I was with Eric Connor. And I can't believe how active that place was. Like, holy crap, this is going to be a cool episode. I mean, we had it sounded like a lady, like we all heard it. It's like screaming as if she's being murdered. What?
Yes. That's crazy. That was crazy.
And we're just like, holy crap. So, I mean, the place was wild. So then I told Matt, like, I want to go back there. Let's do a documentary. And I'm like, I'm hyping it up. And we get there, and maybe an EVP and a couple of thoughts. I'm like, what happened? But one of the things that, throughout the years, one of the things that I've noticed is that I'm watching all these people get a lot of activity. Now, we're talking legitimate investigators. We're not talking about the ones who are doing it for entertainment.
No. We don't talk about that.
Yeah. So I see that they're getting quite a bit of activity. Whereas I've either been there or I'm going there. It's like, well, what happened? I don't have that fear. And I think some of the paranormal, kind of has to kind of runs into people's emotions. And I'm not going to say all the time. There are the exceptions, but and it's funny because I told Matt, I'm like, we're going to be working together. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, we've been to the most haunted hospital in the United States, and we got nothing. Any other time I go there, the place is banging. Mm-hmm. Wherever I go with Matt, nothing. Like, it's like nothing happens. It's like, why? We got lucky at Hales. We did have some things happen at Hale. No matter where we go, if we're investigating together, nothing. But we have two guys, a part of the PRU case files, who are, I'm not gonna say they're chicken, but I think with them and their emotions and such, and what they believe, I think that'll help. But I don't know. We'll see.
Right. So Michael says spirits pick up who they communicate and reveal themselves to, in my opinion.
I think I'm not going to say all, but it seems like depending on the person, and if we go into, if we kind of go into the psychology, I kind of want to be careful with that, because when you bring up, when anybody brings up, not you specifically, but when it's brought up,
right,
when it comes to like mental illness, it's like, taboo. Oh, if they got mental illness, they should be doing this, or they're a bad person. No, not at all. Not at all. Everyone has some sort of weirdness to them, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Some just, show it a lot more than others. But you can't. I mean, you can't sit there and just look down or degrade somebody because they may have, anxiety or depression, bipolar, or anything like that. So I have found with a lot of people, and again, I'm not a doctor of any kind, but I have found with a lot of people who do suffer with those types of things, even PTSD, they tend to, for whatever reason, when I say target, I don't mean that in a negative way.
Right.
But it seems like they're getting more experiences for whatever reason than anyone else. Like I said, Matt and I, we go into these places, neither one of us are afraid. We're like, here we are, let's do this. It's boring. Yep. But you bring somebody in, like, we could go to some place and we bring somebody else in who may be a little afraid or have something going on with them. Yep. And all of a sudden, poof, you get a lot of activity, and you take that person out and then it just stops. Bring them back in, it picks up again. But that's not the case all the time.
Right.
It just seems like, certain what's the word I want to use? I don't want to say entities, because entity kind of sounds negative to a certain point. I'll just use the word spirits. Yeah. For whatever reason, I guess they can pick up on that. I don't exactly know why. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're drawn to our energy." That may be the case. I don't 100% subscribe to that. Right. But that may be the case.
Well, you know what I think it is? And I get so frustrated and I get so mad when you hear other people in the paranormal world that say, all this really bad stuff happens everywhere I go. If you're a paranormal investigator and you've got problems going on in your life that you're so stressed and that it is always in the back of your head, then you don't need to go into some of these locations that are pretty heavy duty. I mean, because I do believe that if you have, and I, like you, I don't like to use the demon word, but you do have, as you live is how you are in death. So yeah, we've got some really nasty, evil people out there. We've got some mean people. We've got good people. But you hear all these people in the paranormal world go, oh, I won't ever go back in there again because, of this. Well, why? Why? Are you having high anxiety? Are you fearful? That because that's the one thing that like I'm teaching my son because he's all interested in it. And I was like, nope, you can't show it fear. Put your foot down. Use your words firmly. You have control. You. I was like, don't you show fear, they will feed off of it. Not like you said, not all of them, not all of them, but
Right. But people, and it, I don't know where this came. Like, I don't know how this got twisted, but people say, "Oh, don't feed it, don't feed it, don't feed it." What we're trying to say is, don't acknowledge it.
right.
If it's something evil, demonic, whatever you want to call it, you're always told, do not acknowledge it. If it does something, ignore it. Just go. Acknowledging it, you're giving it permission. The other thing too is provoking. There are many forms of provoking.
Yes.
You can provoke even just by walking into a place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just imagine you sitting on the couch minding your own business, and all of a sudden, some strangers come busting into your place, taking up your space, taking over the place, or maybe they're investigators, throwing their stuff
Loud,
down. Yeah.
obnoxious. Yep.
And it's like, what are you doing here? This is my home. That can be taken as a form
Right.
of being provoked. The other thing, too, is I've always say, if you think you have something very nasty in the house, do not, absolutely do not say, you can do whatever you want to me, but leave, my kids or whoever alone. That is a huge mistake. Now you just exposed your weakness. You
Yes.
probably already knew that weakness. Not you specifically, but now
Right.
a person has invited this thing to go after.
Mm-hmm.
And
And it will hit your weakest part. That the people you care the most, it will go after them.
right, and it's just because you go in there, like even if you go in there purposely to provoke or use provocation, or whatever, you put other people at risk, even if they're not even there. They could be far away. It's a psychological thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's more of a psychological thing. They're like, well, hey, you think you're tough. Well, I'm going to go over here and bother somebody that you care about, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
see just how tough you are. And I always tell people, like, be careful, be careful. Um,
You might get what you asked for and more.
you might get what you ask for, but not the way you want.
Mm-hmm. See, because
And
what I don't like watching paranormal people that are in a group going, well, you can come and use my energy and touch me and no, 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 no. I have a bubble. You respect my bubble. I respect your bubble. Don't touch me. I've been touched twice, two totally different occasions. I get angry. Don't touch me. I am respectful. I'm kind. I don't provoke you. And you come and touch. No, no, no. I don't like that.
no, that is something that I do, and other as well as like Matt Bitten. We
Right.
do that. That is
Right.
something that we do because we want to be able to validate and have those experiences. There is
Mm-hmm.
a reason for it, but you don't do it at every place.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always going, hey, you can mess with my hair, you can do this. I'm drawing a line. Here's the boundary, and
Right.
you can walk up to the line here, but don't go past that line. Um, there was something I was gonna say and I totally forgot.
My bad. Sorry. Well,
No,
Selena
I'm too
says
old.
she thinks that some people are magnet for spirits and some give off energy to keep the spirits away.
Maybe so. I don't know. I mean, there is the theory, the belief out there that certain people do attract spirits. I don't know how true that is. The problem is that it's coming from people. It's coming from people who claim that um, they have experiences all the time, and I take issue with a lot of that. You have people who believe, I'm going to make everybody mad or a bunch of people
No,
mad.
go.
Everybody, for whatever reason in this field, is either an empath, a psychic, or a medium of some kind. That's a rare thing. It's a very rare thing. The problem is when people say, well, I'm an empath. Okay, well, go look into psychology because you may have anxiety. When you have anxiety, the way it was explained to me by a psychologist is everybody has this like invisible barrier. And some people are just more tuned into, which is, it's, I want to say normal, but it's not normal.
No.
They know about this. And there's this barrier that seems to either not be there or it's very thin. And people are very observant. And within their environment, they can pick up on other people's feelings. There's nothing paranormal about that. It is like a form of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So when I sit there and I hear, these people say, well, I'm an empath. Are you? Might want to look into that. You have people
Right.
who claim that, they are psychic. And this has happened to me. I believe it was, a year and a half ago. I went to the Chastain house. I don't know if you know of the Chastain house. I am relying, because I don't want to do research until I'm done. I want to go in there with no biases. And here we have this guy who's taking care of this place, making sure people are keeping out of there, telling us, oh yeah, this woman, she was a witch, and this happened, and that happened, and this woman was hung, and then her sister was hung, and all these stories. Well, we have somebody who was with us. I don't want to say she was a psychic. She was something. And she kept saying, oh, I'm picking up on, and, oh, she was hung here. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. And I won't know if that's right until I actually go and look into that. And she was wrong. 100%, nope, wrong, unreliable. I went and I did my research. The stories that were being told about the house involving the people, BS. The lady was never a witch. Her sister was never hung. Now, I will have to say that I have no idea how the main one, who was being called a witch, I don't know if she was actually hung or not. But the story was her sister was possessed by this evil spirit of her sister. And they hung her too. No, she looked to be an old woman. She died of some kind of, it's something to do with her stomach. I don't remember exactly what it was. So now I'm taking it to the people that, I investigated with, and I'm like, here's what I found. The one person who, said that she has these abilities was not very happy with me. And it's
I mean, if you're going to claim to have something, then you better back it up. And I get the frustration, because I get frustrated too. And I'm like, I'm not going to push anything on anybody. That's not the way it works, because the paranormal field is so wide and we haven't even scratched the surface. But you have so many people. I've watched. It's a demon. It's a demon. It's a demon. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's a demon. It's not a demon. It's far from a demon. It's an elemental. Totally different thing. Totally different. And that's the frustrating part. And I get it. I get it with paranormal teams that just are fed up of these people coming in and going, I have these abilities. I have these abilities. And then it turns out they don't. I totally 100% understand the frustration.
If most of the people who say they have these abilities actually do have these abilities, there is a way to prove it. Mm-hmm. Don't prove it to me. Mm-hmm. Don't prove it to another investigator. Go prove it to scientists. Mm-hmm. Go prove it to a psychologist, a therapist, somebody. Go prove it to them.
parapsychologists love working with them.
But it definitely drives me nuts. And the other thing too, and we're all guilty of having some sort of bias, because a lot of what we take into the field are our own personal beliefs and our own personal experiences. So, I'm guilty of this too. But when I go and investigate, and like I said, I'm guilty. When something happens, an object moves, ghost. It may not even have been a ghost. We have no idea what moved that object. And quite honestly, a ghost should be the furthest thing from our mind. There are all kinds of things that happen within our world that we cannot explain. We don't understand. As it's beyond our comprehension. But again, I'm guilty of this. Ghost. I cannot tell you if a chair moves across the room. I cannot in any way, shape, or form actually say that it was a ghost. Now, on my YouTube channel, you'll hear me say that. Oh, go paranormal. I'm guilty of that. For all we know, it could just be something very natural in the environment that we just don't know about, that we don't understand. That could be triggering, objects being moved. But on the flip side, people getting tossed around like a rag doll or having very heavy objects move, I don't know if that's a natural thing. Then people say, well, what about EVPs? Maybe, or maybe we're capturing something from the past. But then it's, well, what if they answer with intelligence? They're answering your question. Okay, you got me.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. So I think we all have a bias. We come into the field, we have a bias. We believe what we believe, and it's carried into the field. The other thing that I can't stand is when people say, "I have evidence." No, you don't. I don't have evidence. The evidence of anything paranormal does not exist.
The one thing that gets me is I say, there are no rules. There's nothing set in stone in our paranormal world to say, okay, this evidence is here and not here. We don't have that because, we are scratching the surface. But that's what I love about the paranormal world, is everybody investigates in their own way, and everybody gets something different. You could go into a location and may get a little stuff here and there, nothing big deal. Another person go in and get nothing. Another person go in and it's like an explosion. So that's the interesting world about the paranormal. It keeps everybody on their toes, and except for few. I mean, my husband did a when I was interviewing some friends, and I'm not going to name names, but a chair was thrown over, well, not over his head, but it was off to the side, but it was so high, it was over his head.
This person wouldn't have just so happened to have been in a funeral home?
Mausoleum.
A mausoleum? I know a video.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my husband goes, wow, that's some paranormal activity. So as a joke, he was telling this team, he's like, I've got a couple of clips to show you. He says, it's pretty good paranormal activity. It all was shelves crashing with wine bottles from earthquakes. One was a big football match in Europe, and chairs are being thrown in the air. And he's like, see, look, the chair, it just got thrown. He's like, there's your ridiculousness.
Yeah, the entertainment guys. And it's what drives me nuts about that. First off, it makes it harder for me or for anyone, who is actually grinding, who really is trying to get, something out there. It makes it harder for us because honestly, it's freaking boring, guys. Investigating is boring. It is not, I love it, but at the same time, I hate it. It is so boring. And sitting here watching the entertainers do this and seeing their views, it's like, wow, people like they really don't understand. They don't get that. Um, it drives me nuts because it's like, what are you doing? You're gonna ruin it for the rest of us. This is a functioning place here for us to go to, and you're gonna pull this garbage. There's one guy. I won't name. I won't name him, and I won't even name the location. And it's a very famous location. They're like, I don't want him here. I do not want him here. And there are others out there, other location owners who said the same thing. Like, I don't want him here.
Mm-hmm.
Not welcome here because
Mm-hmm.
it's just entertainment. And
Mm-hmm.
and these places, they need to stand on their own. And I always tell
Mm-hmm.
people, if a place has activity going on, it will stand on its own. Hales can stand on its own. But now I'm going to say this. Now they got somebody, I won't say his name, but now they got somebody going in there and he's faking his stuff. And I'm like, the place stands on its own. You don't need the guy. You do not need this guy. He is making this place look bad. But that's what, apparently that's what this place wants is, somebody to really, really hype it up. So that way when people can go and investigate it, they can be disappointed.
Right.
Because that's exactly what's happening. But no, it drives me nuts to see a lot of these guys who just entertain. They're faking and they're causing destruction. And it drives me nuts. But
Let's see. There's two
nothing
things
I can
that
do about
popped up. David says the truest statement about paranormal is there is zero actual proof of paranormal activity. I can't wait for that day someone does.
Right. So I posed this question to Matt Benton. There are scientists out there who are actually looking into this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to tell us anything. They're far ahead of us. But I said, what happens when these guys come out and say, here's what's going on. It is not ghosts. It is XYZ. And they can prove that. Undisputable proof. What happens to us paranormal investigators? What do? We're done. Game over. What do we do next? Well, Matt said UFOs.
Oh gosh.
So,
I have not experienced that yet. I don't know if I want to.
So to a certain point, do we really want to have tangible evidence, undisputed evidence? Do we really, really want that? Because
we don't know what's out there.
Right. Because if we do get that, we may not like it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's game over.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the end of it.
And then Michael says, what's funny is the entertainers have to fake their stuff when it is so much better when not faked.
I mean, like the problem with my channel is I keep it real. And I know it's boring. This stuff is boring, but I want people to really see, hey, this is what it's like.
But that's how it is.
Right. Now in the future, I'll get, more to the point on certain things. But, for a while, I'm like, guys, this is it. This is what it's like. It's not glamorous. I've had people say, you're lucky. You get to travel all over the country and go to these cool places. I'm like, I am, but it kind of sucks. Kind of lonely being out on the road.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
And where has that actually gotten? It hasn't gotten me far, but that's okay. I'm not looking to be all famous or anything like that. I got lucky and was able to be on Kindred Spirits for 18 seconds. They made me look like an idiot. I was not happy about that. But,
don't you like how Hollywood twists things?
Well, I'll tell you, look, I like Amy and Adam are great. Mm-hmm. The crew, they're awesome too. And I enjoyed and I learned a lot when it comes to how they put together a show. I learned a lot. I mean, I knew a lot of it, but there were other things that I didn't think about, so I didn't learn from that. But what I didn't like was there was never a curse put on the land where hail's barred animals. There was a promise. Yeah, Dragon Canoe was a little ticked off at a deal that was being made for peace. And he basically promised to kill anybody that come, his way. And that's exactly what he did. It wasn't a curse. It was a promise. And they went in there with a story. All right, we're going to focus on this specific story. And I had said that story's not going to work because that never happened. In fact, Dragon Canoe wasn't even in this area. And where this so-called curse came from, that was in Kentucky. That was not in Tennessee. Now, Dragon Canoe was in that area later, and he did die not too far from where Hale sits. But, they spun it, a curse. And they didn't even go to the right place. They went to the Historical Society, and it was not the right one. They went to the wrong one. And the lady just said, oh, yeah, there's a curse put on the land. I'm like, you're a historian. You should know better. And, they went with that. And people know that I've been there many times. Mm-hmm. And I've investigated that place alone many times. Mm-hmm. And they, it was said, oh, I'll never forget the look of fear in Joe's eyes. I'm like, are you kidding me? And they knew I was an investigator, but they said, oh, we're trying to break the fourth wall. Make it look like, only TV show people have been there to investigate. So they put me as a historian. I'm like, I'm not a historian. And then the stuff that, they claim that they found, it was like, oh, look what I found. I was like, no, look what was handed to you by me. But it's TV. And, you have to play the game, I guess.
Roll with the punches, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, God, I can't believe that. I mean, it was upsetting, but it was a good episode. There was something that it likes to mimic, and I would go in there because I started to realize whatever's here is able to mimic, and it's kind of a red flag. But let's see what's going on here. So I would do this specific whistle. And every time I went, I would do this specific whistle. Next thing I know, I'm being told, hey, these people captured your whistle. They have no idea, that you're doing this. They just, a whistle, whatever, and throw it out there. And then the people who were running the tours, they would hear it and they're like, yeah, that's Joe's whistle. And then once people realized what I was doing, they would send me audio saying, hey, we caught your whistle. Check this out. They actually captured that on the show, my whistle.
Wow.
Whatever's there, it likes to mimic. And research and history is very important. Now, I'm not going to say that it is this person who's doing it, but interestingly, looking into the history, there was a man, when he was a boy, he was going to school within that area. And what he would do to get to school out early, you got to remember the time frame. There were no bells, there were nothing.
No.
What he would do is he was able to mimic the principal's whistle, and he did this for quite a few days, and the teachers thought, oh, well, it's that time, and so they were leaving 10-15 minutes early from school. They finally caught him. But he would come back and forth because the kids, when they would go to school, they would actually go into the dam and they would go through the tunnels under the water to get to school.
Wow.
And so it's kind of, I don't know if it's him or not. I mean, and I mean, I personally don't believe it is him, but it's definitely interesting. And that's the other thing too. When we investigate, we look into people's history. We're like, oh wow, well that's what I captured. Mm-hmm. So that has to be that person. Mm-hmm. It may not actually be that person. It may be something else mimicking that person.
Right.
When you get back to the I'm trying to stay away from it. When you get to the demonic aspect of the
I know.
paranormal, if anybody believes in that, they know us better than we know ourselves. They know our friends, our family better than we know ourselves.
Mhm.
They can very much mimic and make us believe. But again, if that's something, if somebody doesn't believe, and that kind of thing, that's absolutely fine. But I just found that interesting. But I don't honestly believe it's
The one thing that I love is you have to have history and paranormal. I mean, it goes hand in hand. I mean, but the one thing I do is I stay away from the religious aspect of it, because if you want to go the religious aspect, then everything we're doing, communicating with spirits and everything, we should be stoned to death.
right.
I mean, there's Bible verses. Now, I'm not saying not keep it, but I just choose to kind of separate it a little bit. I'm
Right.
more the historical and the paranormal than people start bringing in religion, because then technically, I mean, there's a bunch of verses in the Bible that says, do not communicate with spirits.
Right. And basically, yeah, I look at that as a warning.
Mm-hmm.
If these things are real, we have no idea what we're truly communicating with. We are running a risk. We have no clue. And yeah, I have said, to somebody, I haven't said to somebody. There was my son a few years ago, quite a few years ago. He's had a birthday party. He had it here, and he invited his little school friends over, and I had mentioned something about the paranormal, whatever, but the guy just overheard me, so now he's questioning me about it, and I'm just like, oh, I see what he's doing. He's trying to box me in. Is what he was trying to do. Try to make me, like, oh, I guess what I'm doing is wrong. No, but no, I acknowledged, hey, I know what it says. But then at the same time, when you read the Bible, when you look at the Bible in there several times, and again, this is what I believe, and if anybody like disagrees with that, I'm not going to argue it. Will not argue it. Several times, when we die, we rest till the day of judgment. The whole rapture, end of the world thing, judgment day, things like that. So essentially, I believe, and again, guys, I have a brother who has passed away. My mom has passed away. I do believe that when we die, we go nowhere. Nowhere. And for whatever reason, and I'll never be able to prove this, but for whatever reason, either we just don't go into that state of rest, or the spirit is disturbed and wakes up. And that's where we get, our human hauntings. No, I'm not saying that's true. That's what I believe. So I brought that to that guy's attention. He just kind of laughed. And it, I'm like, no, it really, really says that. He actually got my daughter to go to church with him. And I was not happy. I don't mind, I believe in God, whatever. I'm not a ball Christian. But to sit there and have a man who barely knows me tells my daughter that she has to come to church because they're trying to save her soul, because her daddy is a paranormal investigator. They laughed about it. They made fun of it. I'm like, so much for, hey, don't judge.
Right.
It's only one person's job. It's not anybody here.
Yep.
I was mad. I was not happy. So
I would be in the same boat as you. I fall in as a Christian, but I'm very careful when dabbling with that, because, of course, my family's all from here. I'm in Georgia, Bible belt of I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice. I mean, because I did tell my mom, hey, I'm doing a paranormal channel. I'm just letting you know. I'm doing it, giving you a heads up. And what happens? My aunt, do you know what Kimmy is doing? Do you know? Yes, I know what she's doing. She's also a grown woman and paying her own bills. She can do whatever she wants.
My stepdad's the same way. He's like, there's no, you know what that really is. You know what that really is. Like, well, you don't know what that really is either. None of us know. My grandmother would drive me nuts, though. God rest her soul. She would drive me nuts. Uber Christian. And I'm just sitting here. I'm just watching TV. I'm watching Ghost Hunters. Just, watching. And she says to me, why are you watching this? I'm like, because it's interesting. She's like, it's all demons. It's all demons. Da, 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 da. And just went on and on. I'm like, look, Annie, I just want to watch this. Whatever. That's fine. You believe differently. But she kept going. You need to turn, what is it? TBN on. You need to turn TBN on and get the word in you and listen to them. I'm like, yes, I'm totally going to listen to a guy who sells out arenas, who hits people with his coats, claiming he's healing them through the power of God.
Let's not even go there, because before my stepmother passed away, with me having MS, she had MS as well. And she wanted us to go to Billy Graham. No, I'm sorry, but there is not a man on earth that's going to heal me. Unless it's a scientist that can figure out something. But sorry, I don't want to get hit, and I don't, no. But she was getting in the stages of her MS where it was God, everything. God. She spoke to God. God's a woman. I mean, my stepmother was one of those, and it was just all she would watch is all these church programs, and what can you do?
Right.
I just don't like it, because I find most people, and I'm not saying all, but most will judge you immediately. Oh, you can talk to dead people. You can hear them.
And then I remind them. Then I have to remind them. Well, you pray to a dude who's somewhere. So
well, I mean, you believe in Jesus, and Jesus died and rose. I mean, how creepy is that? I mean, I get it, because it's the because when you go the religious aspect, you have to be so careful. And the one thing I have issues with is paranormal people that are like, I believe in God and I pray and I pray. You didn't read your Bible, did you? You didn't read it, because it does say, don't talk to dead people. So you're doing everything against what your God has asked for.
Right. And well, don't we all, though, in some way, shape, or form? I mean, we're all, even outside of the paranormal, we do things that, we're not supposed to. But we're human.
Right.
But people, I'm going to have to watch what I say here. people, a lot of people, the way they make God sound, they make God sound like a complete a-hole. And it's like, no, I think he's very understanding. I think he gets it. And I think he just wants us, to do what we need to do our best, be cool, be kind, help one another out. Just, that's all he's really asking.
That's very similar to what I say. This is the way I say, I'm here and I do the best. I pay my taxes. I don't cheat. I don't steal. I don't rob. I raise my son up, hopefully, to be a good man, to do the same thing. So you're going to punish me because I didn't go to church every Sunday.
Right. And one of the, this was back when I was a teen, my grandmother was watching something, And this guy was outside of a concert venue, a preacher. He's like, hey, do you think you're going to heaven or hell? And people are like, oh. And he's like, well, then if you don't know, you're in trouble. And then it was, have you ever stolen anything? And people were like, no. We're like, so let's just say you borrow a pen from somebody and never give it back. That's stealing. You have to be forgiven for that, or otherwise you're not going to go to heaven. I'm like, dude, I highly doubt God's gonna be like, oh man, you stole a pen? I'm gonna walk you to the gates of hell. I highly doubt that. And then back to the guy who was telling my daughter, "What do we need to save your soul?" He told me that the cable company had put a pole in his house, and he was actually getting free cable. Well, the cable company wasn't giving him free cable. He went up to the pole, gave himself free cable. And then he said, oh, then the cable company, they came down and they unplugged it. So I went and I hooked it back up. So you're stealing cable?
Stealing.
No, the pole is in my yard. The pole might be in your yard, but you have to pay for that service. That is a utility. Just because it's in your yard doesn't mean it's yours. That's stealing.
Yeah.
Well, it just depends on how you look at it. I'm like, of course it does, because, it's benefiting you because you can go up there and get your free cable.
Right.
Yeah, okay, buddy. But I've investigated with people with all kinds of different beliefs, and I can get along with most of them. Now, some of them I'm like, okay, just because I might believe this doesn't mean she should be attacking me. But for the most part, everyone that I have worked with the exception of a couple, I've absolutely enjoyed. And
well, that was my next question to you. You're talking 27 years on and off. So how many paranormal groups have you investigated with?
Oh my Lord. So let's see.
Oh no.
So there was the original group that I was with, and then that kind of just like that sizzled up. There wasn't an argument. There was none of that stuff. It ended the way it should. It dissolved the way it should. Because the two who were actually leads for that, they were old anyways, and they were just ready to retire and go do something different. They were, they had good jobs and stuff like that, and just kind of like, let's just go ahead and hang it up and just enjoy ourselves. So there was that group. Let's see. I really didn't want to get involved into another group because I knew it would never be the same. And it was very evident by looking at what was going on. I did get involved with a group here in Bristol, Tennessee. That was, I don't know, magically everybody became a psychic. And there were certain people who were actually faking things, and I didn't like that. So I'm like, nope, I want no part of that. We moved back to Michigan. I got involved with a group. It was a couple, boyfriend, girlfriend, and I broke my rule. I've always said I don't want to be in a group where the two leads are husband, wife, or boyfriend, girlfriend, because it never, ever goes well.
No.
And that's what happened. And they were fairly new to the field anyways. So I was kind of like helping them out, trying to teach them. Which, I mean, they knew a lot of the stuff anyways. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm going on my own. I'm going to investigate by myself. And that's just the way it's going to be. So let's see. I have investigated with Seven Paranormal. I have investigated with Interface Death. I've investigated with, what is it? Oh, they're not a group anymore. Like the Paranormal Sisters or something like that. I can't remember what that was. I went on an investigation with them at OSR, or Mansfield Reformatory. Oh my Lord. Let's see. East Tennessee Ghost Seekers, Gateway Paranormal. For an event, I investigated with the Tennessee Wraith Chasers.
Mhm.
Those guys are cool. And they weren't, it's funny because everybody's like, oh, weren't the guys that tried to trap ghosts? That was not their idea. That they signed up, and then the network's like, hey, we want you guys to build devices to trap ghosts. And we're
Oh
like,
no.
what? So they just kind of had to go with that. Oh,
They look like a bunch of good old boys.
They are cool. They are very down to earth. I don't have anything bad to say about them. They're really cool. And they're very funny, and they have their little following, which is funny because a lot of like my friends on Facebook, it's like, oh, the Tennessee Wraith Chasers, they're going to be doing this here. Well, I know who's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be these group of people that follow around, which is cool, actually, cool and kind of creepy at the same time. So I'm kind of like, I hope that doesn't happen to me. But I've investigated. Yeah, I've investigated with a lot of different groups. I can't remember them all, and some of them, they're no longer around anyways.
Right.
And then
that's the one thing I have found with paranormal groups is, man, a lot come and go. I mean, there was you'll probably I keep forgetting his name. Oh no, I got it now. I got his name. He moved. I was living on the other side of Atlanta from where I am, and he had started up. This is before Facebook. This is before, MySpace. This is YouTube chats, and he created his own website and was like, let's start a paranormal group. Yeah, that went over. When you start sleeping with all the women and your wife's at home with 2 boys.
Maybe they're getting that guy confused with me, or me confused with that guy, because people are like, oh, Joe goes to these like events and stuff just to go sleep with a bunch of chicks. I'm like, am I that big of a stud?
No, because the guy.
Where did that come from?
I mean, there was so much inner fighting, and I mean, I just kind of dipped my toes in that group a little bit. Mm-hmm. They wanted us to go to a location. I was like, okay, I'll go. I'll tag along. And they're talking about this church, and it's haunted, and there was a hanging. It's a slave church, blah, blah, blah. I'm going, I ain't picking anything up over there, but across the street is this old cemetery. And I was like, some dude was tortured and killed there. And they were like, how do you know? Well, because I'm picking up on it. There's nothing at this church. Nothing. I was like, and they're like, how did you know that? I'm just telling, I don't know. There's something over there. And they're like, well, he was kidnapped from a grocery store because he wouldn't open the safe to give the money. They tortured him. They took him back, got the money, took him back, wanted no witnesses, killed him there. So a couple weeks, I wanted to know what was going on with that church. And I took a bunch of guys, they're construction guys that you can only imagine. And they're like going through the place, and they're like, there's nothing wrong with this place except that it's the basement. It was a cinder block basement, is completely flooded. They said they've tapped into a spring. They've had problems with this basement. They didn't like that. The group got very angry at me, very angry, because they wanted to get a story on that church. And I was like, there's no story. Go over there to that cemetery. Well, we don't want to go. There's ticks. And okay. So after that, I was like, no. It dissolved, and he is now in Savannah. Well, it dissolved, and he got a TV show. And I can't remember the TV show. It was shortly after. Remember, Ghost Hunters used to be Taps?
Well, it's still, I get what you're saying, yeah.
The very beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
the very beginning they were taps, and that's when him and some psychic and some don't ask me got a TV show. Made it one season, and he is now in Savannah running ghost tours.
And then yeah, I'm also and I'm friends with somebody. I'm not going to name drop the person, but who was on a paranormal TV show that was short-lived from Deep South Paranormal. I'll just say the name, Randy, Randy Hardy, and Kevin. And yeah, I've investigated with him at Waverly Hills. So, and that was a lot of fun. And it was kind of funny because I didn't know what to expect, from him. Actually, Kevin was with him at the time, but Randy was a really cool, down to earth guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a lot of fun investigating with him as well. So it's kind of funny because like if people really, a lot of it I just kind of keep low key, but I'm sure if somebody did even more research, they'd just kind of be surprised at my resume that I don't exactly share.
That's okay.
But it's
Uh-oh, your buddy's in here.
oh no.
Hey,
And
Matt.
speaking of, it was funny because it was just like a year and a half ago or something like that, 2 years ago. Matt's like, hey, I want to know if you want to join my team. Like, no, I just want to do what I'm doing. I want to be able to, I don't want to be a part of a team. Um, and then I just changed my mind. But it changed my mind because everything's always the same. Anything that I've ever been involved with, it's the same old crap over and a wash, rinse, repeat. It's like, I want to look at other aspects of the paranormal as well. And I can't exactly do that on my own. I mean, I can, but it's a challenge. And me going off to these places by myself or just meeting with people, that in itself is a freaking challenge. Because I just don't take a car ride down the street. I'm taking 8-hour drives, 13-hour drives, cross country. So Matt, I don't want to give away a lot here with the PRU case files, but there are aspects of the paranormal that we want to dive into. And I'm like, okay, I can back that. I'm done with that. Kind of something that I wanted to do as well. So let's do something. Let's investigate. However, let's look at other things involving psychology and just a lot of other things. Just to do something different, because again, we're just running around like chasing ghosts, trying to get ghosts on freaking video or whatever. But we're not really diving into anything, and it drives me nuts. People are like, oh, we use scientific methods. No, you don't. You do use, like a K2 meter or emitter, stuff like that. Yeah, it's scientific equipment, but it doesn't tell me anything. It tells me nothing. Or people say, well, I got proof. I have an SLS camera and a stick figure popped up. That doesn't tell me anything. What is it telling me? Nothing. That's not proof. That is just, that it could be picking up anything. It may be like, hey, this looks like a person, so I'm going to map it out.
Well, it's interesting because I was interviewing one team that's up in New York, and he was talking about paranormal equipment and how he's like, miss this paranormal equipment. He says it wasn't built for paranormal. So like he was talking about the K2 meter. He's like, so I got a buddy who was a line guy, and he says he found a pocket of iron not far from one of those substations, and he followed it with his meter. Of course, he has a different meter. Followed it all the way to a trough, and he had gone miles following this iron pocket with his, well, basically K2 meter. And it was it there was this trough of water for the cows. And he had found out every time those cows go try to take a drink of water, they're getting their nose shot.
Huh. It's charged. I was gonna say it sounds like it's charged.
Mm-hmm. Which I found that to be a very interesting story.
I might get a little bit of trouble for saying this, but I'll go ahead and I'll say it because it is my opinion, nobody else's. Most of the paranormal gear that is used, the K2 meters, all the stuff that they package and they sell, for paranormal investigations, is a gimmick. It's a gimmick. It is just another way to make money. It does not. I'm not saying I can't say it does not work. I am sure that those things can be manipulated. The problem is we cannot prove that a ghost is actually manipulating them.
Right.
And it drives me nuts because people rely on that stuff. It's like, don't rely on that stuff. They're like, one guy told me, oh, you run around with your EMF detector. I'm like, dude, I don't even own one. But I don't have one. I don't rely on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I rely on audio and video, as well as myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, yourself, your own self, isn't exactly trustworthy either because we all, find ourselves in a position where we're not comfortable. One of the things that I've noticed for me, I am not comfortable in very confined places. And it raises my anxiety. So I cannot trust my own feelings when I'm inside of a location that I'm investigating.
Mm-hmm.
But I do hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I trust my own feelings." No, don't do that. Don't trust your own feelings. So, but people are going to investigate the way they want. This was a discussion that was had regarding a little bit of the documentary. I don't want to say too much about that conversation, but I agreed with Matt. No matter how much proof we can show that something is not paranormal, say there are other reasons. Look, I can recreate this. Here's what's going on, and I can show that proof. They will not accept it, like orbs, for example. Now, I'm not saying orbs don't exist, but there are many reasons why people get those. First off, an orb emits its own light. So if you go take a picture and you're using your flash, chances are it's going to get washed out. Either you're not going to see it or it's going to look like a black dot. Take a camera and turn the flash on, turn a light bulb on. Go take a picture of that light bulb. Guess what? It looks off. It doesn't even look like it's turned on. But people get upset. And then people say, I don't even know why you're in this show if you don't believe in it. It's like, no, there are other explanations.
Right.
But people act like, I've murdered their animal or something. And then they come at me because I'm like, no, here are these other reasons. But, it was a conversation.
But the one thing I find interesting is they're like, I'm doing it scientifically. I have not watched you go around that house and find out where all the little hot spots are with your K2. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're going to do it, you do it. What's the temperature? What's the humidity? What are you get the baseline of everything, then that way but people don't do that. Not a lot.
When I go to Hales or when I was going to the Monroe house, I knew, I could tell you, I have it all written down, and I don't have it with me right now. It's all packed in the car, but do I still have that stuff? I should. I know the humidity inside the building. Humidity in the tunnels versus the humidity elsewhere within that within that place. I can tell you I can basically tell you basically all the conditions uh, in that place because
Mhm.
I like took the time and put in the work.
Right.
And people say, well, places that have like large amount of water, like flowing water, and have quartz zones, and and all this stuff. Those are really active places. That's the belief, and I'm like, well, you can put that to the test. Go to Hales, because I promise you that theory does not exactly hold up all that well. And then
Right.
they'll say, well, wait a minute, it's right on the river. That river flows fast, and here's all these minerals and da 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 da. Da. I'm like, you'll be disappointed. I've gone to Health many times. I have captured some cool stuff at that place.
Yeah.
99% of the time, it is quiet. Nothing is going on.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if I'm there by myself or if I have other people.
Mhm.
It is quiet. We get lucky there from time to time, but I'm not really believing that large flowing body of water and stones and all that stuff contribute heavily to any kind of paranormal happenings. I am not saying that that is a fact. I'm just saying what I have observed
Mhm.
from going to a location that is under the perfect conditions, it's not that active.
Right.
So I think, you know, people need to stop relying on what other people say. They need to
Mhm.
stop relying on the ridiculous equipment like REM pod. There's a million reasons why a REM pod goes up. There's a million reasons why EMS detect K2s, great for paperweight or to jam under a door to keep it open.
Mhm.
Don't rely on these things. Don't. The Ovilus 5, I had one. I know how it works. Explain to me how a ghost knows if it can spike an Ovilus to like 1.5, it knows what word is gonna pop up. It's like, oh, well, I want to say hi, so I need to get this thing to register with the EMF 1.6. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit that 1.6, and I'm gonna be able to say hi. How does that work, guys? How does this like use common sense?
Like the
It, it
necker.
is
Oh.
it is fairy tale BS. There is no device, and they can say, "Hey, we built it specifically for paranormal." There is no device. Now, I'm not saying they cannot be manipulated. Yes, it absolutely can be manipulated. But again, how much of that is manipulation versus randomness? We can't prove that, and that drives me nuts. It's like, guys, common sense, too good. If it sounds too good to be true, and it costs like $300, it's BS.
There's a guy I interviewed. He was my last interview, and he he's like, I can build all this stuff and not charge an arm and a leg. Like his biggest pet peeve was Boo Bear or whatever it is, which I have watched paranormal investigators use that stupid bear, and they end up getting so annoyed because it won't shut up. It keeps talking and it keeps talking and it keeps talking, and he's like, I can make that, and I can make it where it doesn't. He says it doesn't even need to talk. There's no reason for it to talk. But
I believe
he's good on his prices. He's good. He honestly, I was shocked how good his prices were. If
it
people
costs it
go ahead.
costs no more than it costs no more than $5 to
Hmm.
make 99%
Hmm.
of the things that are being used out there. And then they turn around and sell it for, $50 on all the way up to hundreds of dollars.
A REM pod is $198. A REM pod.
Right. That's ridiculous.
And I think I forgot what his REM pod is, but it's not $100. I think it's like 30 something bucks. And I'm like, my thing is, I am not a gadget person. There's a few things like the cat balls, okay, but I'm not a gadget person. But I do respect other people that want to use gadgets. That's why I interviewed him, because I was like, okay. But even he said in our interview, he's like, all you need is a digital recorder. If you don't have a camera, use your phone. That's all you need. That is all you need to go in and do an investigation.
Right. Now, there is an app and there is one piece of equipment that I'm like, okay, I can use this. The EDI Plus, because it actually collects data. Okay. And then the AEVPS. Now, I might be a little biased because the guy who made the app, he is a friend of mine. But the AEVPS, all it is a bunch of pre-recorded questions. You can choose, male, female, adult, or male, female, child. And you can just pick from a list of a ton of questions.
Oh, I think I heard him talking about it when y'all were investigating Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. Yeah, I think he was talking to you about it. And I was like, that sounds cool.
And that's it. That's all it does. It'll even record on the phone, or you can use it as a trigger object and record on a digital recorder, whatever you decide to do. And I use that. Now, I have used the Solomon app. I have used the Cynthia app that it has come up with, but those are just scare.
Right.
Matt's not going to mind me saying this, because that's the reason for that has a lot to do with the psychological aspect.
Right. I mean, he even told me that. So.
Right. So.
I am saving up for an EDI Plus. I want one. The group in New York I was telling you about, they're very iffy on the equipment they use. They like to do the Estes method. So, of course, they have the Spirit Box. They have the EDI. They have the millimeter, only because she says that way you can use two devices and figure out, you can, I hate using the word debunk, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Rule out if it's a false positive. So, but I want one of those EDI Pluses, and they're sold out.
But I just I don't want to carry around a ton of equipment. I have a camera that I got to tote around. There's other equipment that I have to tote around, and these other things. I mean, if people want to use them, by all means. If you got money burning a hole in your pocket and you want some gear, go for it. But honestly, you don't need much to do a proper investigation.
So Selena said back in the day, and I can relate with her because, I mean, this was 90s when I started really getting into it and exploring it, that she used her mom's Christmas ornaments, jingle bells, and they were more useful than anything I've ever seen.
I mean, it can be very simple. I mean, back in the day, a lot of investigators actually used little like bells and put them on doors, because people were saying, hey, something's opening this door. Yeah. Handle keeps jiggling. So, they can't be in that room and sit there all day and wait for something, to happen. So, they just set, bells up and then just walks away. And if it jingles, then they're like, okay, that's cool.
Matt says you can have them carry around equipment in his tactical pouches. That's awesome. There you go. You have him. You said it. He'll carry your stuff around.
We carry too much stuff anyways for that. His pockets are all full of equipment and KY jelly. KY
jelly.
He actually brought some to an investigation. He says he
KY
didn't
jelly.
mean to. He says he didn't mean to, but I was kind of like, dude, I know I said you and I we're gonna be in this place by ourselves, no, we're investigating. When I say investigating, ghosts, not each other.
And you will sleep over there, and I will sleep over here.
But it was funny though. He was trying to get a ring off of his finger, and he couldn't get it off. So he's like, "Do you got like water or whatever?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Oh, I'm trying to get this ring off my finger." And he's like, "Oh wait, I got KY in my car." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So it's kind of been a little joke ever since. Same thing with
Michael says maybe he wanted to probe a spirit.
So yeah, that's been kind of a joke. So.
Okay, so I guess that's ready for clips. So what clip are we fixing to watch?
All right, so this is Alex, Bob, and I. We are the only people inside Hales Bar now, and this is like one of the coolest things that I have experienced. Keep in mind, at this point in time, there is no electricity in that building. Now, there is electricity in the building now. I don't know if it's the entire building. We were a little confused at first, and then it continued to happen. We did go look for the source. We were unable to find the source. I went back a week later, and it was pointed out where this bell is, and it was in a completely different. It was one, two, three rooms away from where we're at, 30 feet in the air. So
this is awesome. Babe, audio. Turn up the sound. Sound, dear. You gotta have sound. You're mute. Every time. Honey, you're mute. Sound.
I'm not walking to that water.
There you go.
Water. Hold on.
There you
go. There are times where this place, dude, it's kicking, and at times where look at that, man. Why is that sound like a phone?
Wow.
Really? What is that? Sounds like an old school phone.
Yeah, like one of those bells, like the bell.
Yeah. We have to check that out. Where do you think that came from? That came from the switchback area. I'm not walking through that water. I don't want any of us walking through the water because we may see what footprints.
True. I'm gonna leave my stuff over there.
yeah, we went looking and we couldn't find it at that time.
And what's weird is it even got louder.
I've never heard it sound like that.
The second time it got so loud.
Mm-hmm. That sounds
Oh,
like
it got louder a third time.
I mean, that's it. There's no more after that.
I thought it was fun.
The reason why I went ahead and played it on my camera and recorded it with my phone is because a lot of times what people can do is they can pretend like they heard something, and then in editing, they can overlap that, and they can sound like, "Ooh, that that really did happen."
That was awesome.
No, it was really cool, and we were confused. We're like, "What?"
I mean, that is pretty awesome.
And that was an amazing night, and I was very surprised at how active it was that night. We got a lot of stuff from there, so it was a good time.
is he doing? Okay, so this one. Now you're going to have to explain this to me.
Yeah.
What
So-
the hell are they playing?
All right, so this is called. It is the Bob's. Yeah, I believe the Bob's board. Okay, it's kind of like the Ouija board. The story behind it, and this isn't exactly true, but the story behind it is it was either made by or made after a guy who, if I remember the story correctly, murdered people. I believe I got that story right. I'm not 100% sure.
Yes, yeah.
So this is the clip that we had just seen previous to this. We were at house for 2 nights. This was the second night after the investigation. We went into cabin 7, which is haunted, and it's fairly close to a cemetery where children are. Keep that in mind. Now we do get EVPs, or we do get what sounds like a child coming through the spirit box. Now, I'm not a big believer in the spirit box. I do believe the communication can happen, and I've had that happen a couple of times. So we do get like what sounds like a child coming through that. So Eric is using his gateway, and something said, "Play with Alex." Clear. You guys won't have a hard time hearing this.
Yep. This is awesome.
Pinch in your eye.
Dude, I've had Ouija boards move on their own ever since you made me. Play with Alex? Play with Alex.
The look on his face.
He didn't look happy. He looked a little.
He was shocked. We all
Yes.
were shocked.
That was crazy. Oh my God. That's insane.
Yeah, we were all like, okay. Didn't expect that.
I mean, just plain as day. Oh, that's creepy.
But the Bob's board, or whatever it's called, is sort of like the Ouija board.
Okay,
So-
because I watched it and I was like, I rewatched it. I was like, I am confused. So I'm just gonna leave it there.
Alex
Yeah.
likes to get some weird stuff, and he likes to use it. So
That was weird. Because I was like, no, yes or no, or nothing like that. So you're gonna pull up the next one? What is this one?
this is the Monroe house. I'm with another investigator, and something threatened me or one of us. You should be able. Hopefully, everybody will be able to hear it. It's kind of clear.
Dude.
Yep, I heard it. It's soft, but you know, it when you played with the sound, yeah.
So, that's just some of it. I tried to go and find some more stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't have time. But yeah, I mean, the Monroe House is a strange place, that's for sure. So,
I've heard so many things about the Monroe House, and
yeah,
that place is creepy.
it is creepy, and I had talked about. I'm not. I don't do well in confined areas, and the Monroe House, especially now because Eddie's been doing some remodeling, has made some of it more confined, and it raises my anxiety levels, and I mean, I'll investigate. I have no issues with that, but at the same time, I'm so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a strange place. Yeah, I know everybody's all about like Waverly Hills. Oh, Waverly Hills, Waverly Hills. I've been there a couple of times, and I have not yet had any luck. I would love to go back, but I don't want to pay that price.
No, it's what 1200, I think. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a ridiculous amount.
Right, it is, and there are places that are a lot more active for
Hmm.
a whole lot cheaper
Hmm.
than are out there. So
Yeah, the guy that I was telling you about, Joshua, he that builds his own equipment, just came back from Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. He's like, I just love that place. I love it. He's like, I absolutely love it. And he caught us when he was there. It was a couple weeks ago, maybe. Uh, yeah, a couple weeks ago. He ended up getting a shadow person into the
so
hall.
yeah, Matt and I thought we actually, well, it was Matt's camera that captured it. We honestly thought that we captured a shadow person. And I really wanted to dig into it, look at it, and just the way it moved and everything like that, it just didn't seem right. And I'm watching it over and over again, and one of my subscribers had pointed a few things out, and I really got, fresh set of eyes. And then I realized this is what's going on. It's not paranormal. It has to do with the camera that Matt had. And yeah, but, we'll learn something about that camera because it was a new camera. He had it. I don't think he's used it before. I think it was the first investigation he actually used it on. So we were able to learn the limitations on that camera. But I never get upset when somebody says, "Hey, this is what it is," and I go back and really look into it. I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Um, just a few nights ago, was it? There was something that had happened. Now I'm talking about the documentary that involved these weird lights. And no, Matt is believing that this is that we actually captured something, and I'm going, looks like headlights to me. And he gave his explanation as to why, very valid, a very valid explanation as to why he thinks that this is paranormal, and I'm giving mine. Now my reasons are were definitely a little weaker than his reasons. uh, we'll just say I was able to say I told you so. Because again, experience, and I'll talk about this here real quick. Um, I have seen things similar like that. Like we went a whole, there were hardly any cars that drive down the street, and then for whatever reason, a car drives on the street. It doesn't reflect. However, another car could come driving down the street, and then it reflects. It can either because of the height of the car, or they turn their high beams on. And in this case, the person who was driving the truck, it was a truck or an SUV, had their high beams on.
Hmm.
So Matt was going through the footage to see what was going on. And sure enough, we were all in Bill's vehicle. He's driving an SUV.
Hmm.
It's high up. He turns his brights on, and you can see just how lit up everything was. So there was that, and then something about how it was the DVR cameras. What was
Hmm.
happening was you could see the lights, but it would jump back and then move forward. And that was just kind of weird. But zooming in and looking at it, realized it really wasn't jumping back. And I'm just like, look, there's enough room between the barn and the tree line, for this to happen. Also, look, these lights are not shining behind these curtains.
Hmm.
That should be. We're only seeing these lights, in between the curtains. That's it. And that's the thing. Um, we will do whatever we can to get to the truth, to
Right.
debunk something. We don't want to put something out there. Um, that we really believe is. I mean, it happens though. It happens, but you got to go back in and fix that. Say, hey, look, guys, I think we can sell.
Right.
Here's what's going on. There's nothing wrong with that. It does not make you look bad.
Right.
It's just at that point in time, you didn't either. It's something that you haven't experienced before
Yes.
and don't know, or you get a fresh set of eyes to look at something
Right.
and have a different way of looking at it.
But that's what's called, that horrible word, honesty. I mean, it's sad that it's a horrible word, but I mean, I would rather a team be honest and upfront and go, okay, we thought this was paranormal, but you know, we found that it wasn't. That's great. Nobody should be condemned, or there needs to be more of that. Like what I find interesting is my friends that went to the Conjuring House got something completely different, and they're honest, upfront people, and it took them a long time to post the video. It was just a husband and wife team. There was another person there. They ended up leaving. The way he explained it to me in an interview is, he says, I literally stripped all my armor and went into the house. And he's in the video that they just released. He says, the one thing I did do that I should have never done, he says, I went into the basement by myself. He says, but the problem is I let fear get a hold of me. And he says, whatever is in that house grabbed onto it. And he was like, okay, I'm out of here. I can't take it any longer. Goes upstairs, reunites with his wife. They're doing the Estes method. It was dark and it was bad. Bad enough that...
It's interesting that you say that, but I can't say too much about that.
Right. But it was very interesting. And I mean, his Estes method, I mean, it was run, go. And he says in a really deep voice. And he saw a shadow figure run by, but he said he couldn't see it really. So then his wife's like, okay, well, I'll do the Estes method and you can ask questions. Oh. She heard a woman's voice, and then she said she heard a man's voice. I can't remember what was said, but she said there was a very deep, dark, heavy voice, run. And he's sitting there, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, he's not acting like his typical self. Something's up with him. So he pulls her out of it, and they're sitting there, and he's like, I saw a spirit run. So she's like, okay, hey, I'll go look. So they go look, and so they sit back down. They go outside to take a break. And he's like, I still can't get away from it. So they went back upstairs, and that's when he says, this thing scared the shit out of me. And I knew that if we stayed the night, we were going to get hurt. And they left. And I've never seen them ever react this way. And she was just telling me today, she's like, that is one location he will never go back to. She says you couldn't pay him enough money.
Oh, geez. I would love to go back. We've stayed the night there a couple of times. Well, Eric and Bill, they stayed the night there 2 nights. Matt and I 3 nights. And I mean, the first time I went to film the documentary, I slept downstairs on the couch in one of the main rooms by myself. Bill, Eric, and Matt, they were all upstairs in the 3 bedrooms sleeping up there. And I did hear footsteps walking. The problem is that I don't know if it was one of the guys walking upstairs or
Right.
not, but it sounded like it was coming from the floor of the room that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
crap, what's going on here? This is pretty cool. Then going back, because we went back, we wanted to get some more B-roll footage. We wanted to do some debunking. And Levy, we took Levy, Legal Papa TV, and what's his other channel? I don't remember the name of his other channel. Sorry, Levy.
Chasing the Darkness, is that it?
Thank you. Levy had said to me, dude, it really sounds like somebody's down here when you're walking upstairs. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. So he went upstairs, and it sounded like somebody's walking on the floor in the room that I was in, and not upstairs. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. Now, the Conjuring house is loud. It's old. Whether you have shoes on or not, the floors, they're loud.
Yeah.
But that place, definitely interesting. I do believe, excuse me.
How are you going to drive? You are so tired and yawning.
No, I got to get up here soon, though, because I still got to eat dinner. It's almost 10 o'clock. Things are going to shut down here, and I got to get gas. I yawn a lot. I don't know. It's a breathing thing. But I do believe that whatever is there is an opportunist, and it does go after specific people. I do think it will go after people who don't carry a whole lot of fear or any fear, but it's something about it. I don't know why.
He made a mistake. He went into what was it? Well, it's a library now, but it was, the Pron's master bedroom, and did an Estes method there. That was the first one he did. And he says, I let it all go, and I just soaked it up. And I was like, oh, no. And he knew there it was a mistake.
Interesting. And that's interesting that you say that. Again, I don't want to say too much.
No.
I don't know why it's there. It seems to be kind of territorial, and it seems like, it's real picky about who it goes after. And a lot of it is definitely, again, we have to go back to the psychological aspect. It is definitely cunning with psychological things, such as I could be in a room and I could hear something. Now, I can say this because I did experience this. Unfortunately, it was not captured on camera. I was coming out of the bathroom, and I heard a small child say, in a questioning way, "Daddy?" I'm thinking, oh, Bill's on the phone with his daughter, because Bill was earlier. It was not,
right.
Just like 10 minutes prior to that. I go out there, the guys, they're outside. They are outside. He wasn't in the house. It seems like if we're all together, less happens. Once everyone is separated, things happen. I don't know why the house is haunted. Maybe it's the grounds, but it doesn't make sense, because why is nobody else in that area having those issues? Because somebody would have said something, because, hey, look, somebody's going to want to cash in on it.
Exactly.
Now, I have been told, because I've done some radio shows and some podcasts, and I've had people say, well, you do know that there were people out during, I believe, the 50s and 60s who were practicing dark occult things. Nowhere can anyone find in the history that it's been haunted. Like, none of the previous owners have ever said this place is haunted. The Bathsheba Sherman story of her being a witch.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, everybody knows by now that's a fairy tale story. She wasn't a witch. She was well respected. but for whatever reason, whatever is there likes to say her name. Um, I don't know. I don't know why, and it's so interesting. Um, I do not. This is my opinion. I do not believe what is there. I mean, I do believe that. Yeah, sure, there are human spirits there, but I do believe that there is one that likes to pop up from time to time, and basically, uh, I'll use this loosely. Wreak havoc.
Yep.
We went there. Well, yeah, we went there, but I went into it as
Somebody's ears were burning.
I went
Levy's
into
in
this.
here. Levy heard
I
us talking about him.
Hey, Levy's gonna make a small appearance in the documentary as well. Um, but but we I went there with the impression that not much is going to happen. Now, the movie hyped everything up.
Oh,
Ooh, it
God.
was crazy. It was insanely haunted. So I went in there thinking nothing was going to happen. And I was definitely, I won't say, sometimes I do say this about the house, but I don't mean to say it because I guess I don't know how to word it right. I was kind of surprised in such a way. Um, because a lot of times these places get overhyped and you go, it's so disappointing. This place didn't disappoint. And with me saying that, I guess people have to understand too how I look at things and how I investigate.
Mhm.
There were things that happened, but it wasn't a lot. A lot of what happened
Mhm.
was off camera. And well, I mean, was off camera
Yeah.
or
And that's
just
that's what I hear a lot about the Conjuring
while
house.
we were separate.
It's always I turned my camera off and then everything just started happening. We're hearing more and more. And Matt said he loves that location.
I mean, it is a cool location, and I mean, I would love to go back, but I'm not driving there. Because the last time I went, we had that really bad winter storm. My car looked like
I remember, yes.
I had like an inch of ice covering my entire car. My windshield wipers did not work all that good. Don't want to do that again. But no, Corey and Jennifer, they are awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
they are,
the couple I went full dark paranormal. I mean, they were like, we got to go. I mean, and for that to happen, he must have really something got to him and got to him pretty bad. They're not that type of couple, and they packed up and they woke up, Corey and Jen, and was like, we can't stay here. And they're like, we'll sleep upstairs with you. We don't want you to drive back. And she's like, really, it's a 2-hour drive. But he's like, no, I cannot. Something is going to hurt us if we stay. It is that angry. And they do very, very mild provoking, but I don't even think they provoked here. And
right.
I mean, they said Corey and Jen were so wonderful and so worried about them, and I've heard nothing but good things out of them.
Right. Definitely. If if anyone can, go to that location. It is really cool.
I want to so bad. I have this.
It's in a beautiful area too.
Oh, I mean, the furthest I've been is DC, but I just have this pull of I want to go one day. I was like, I gotta go, but I gotta ask you one question because this intrigued me so much, and I know it's probably delving into some stuff you don't really want to talk about, but I watched one of your early videos and you said that something happened that you literally walked away from the paranormal world for a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about that. I'm not.
I was so intrigued by that because I was like,
okay.
wow.
So, I lived in, my family and I moved back to Michigan. And I was with the group that I was talking about, the boyfriend girlfriend team. That I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go on my own.
Right.
So this is gonna be weird. So at that point in time, I had done an investigation with them at Postown Elementary School, and for some, I don't know what was going on, but we kept getting the number 7 coming through. Now we're like, okay, 7's a very common number in this area. It's in most of the phone numbers, so we're probably running into, a station where that 7 can just slip through with ease. So it kind of just blew it off. And it kind of kept happening. And I kept, I said again, what is it with us and this number 7 thing? It didn't make any sense. The boyfriend girlfriend, they started having issues within their relationship, and it was like this on and off thing. Hey, we're together, we're not here, we're together, and so on. We had went to Postown Elementary School. I had never been there. It was the first time I went, and John and I, we were in the janitor's room or closet, whatever it's called, and we're just sitting there, and we're asking questions. And John asks, what's your name? Who are you? And something came through, and at that point in time, we couldn't understand it. And then he asked again, and we really couldn't understand. So I go home, and I'm listening. I'm like, this thing just said Asmodeus. Okay, didn't think anything of it. And then when asked again, it said demon. I'm like, okay, whatever. Kind of blew it off. So my 7th investigation, I walked away and did one on my own. Oddly enough, the address of the home ended with 7. It was the 7th home on the block. And this is somebody that I knew personally because I went to school with her brother. Her and her brother and I were one time best friends. And at that point in time, he had actually been dead 7 years. And I never tied that together at all until well after. She is telling me what is going on with the home, inside the home. Now, she has roommates. She has several roommates. All of the one roommate I went to school with, the dude went nuts, claimed he was Jesus.
Oh, good.
But he lost his freaking mind. Another guy, they were telling me, like, out of nowhere, he decided to attack his girlfriend. They said that he was literally beating his girlfriend, like, with fists, just hammering on her. And the guy said, yeah, he's like, we were trying to pull him off, dude. He's like, I looked him dead in the eyes. Dude, he's like, his eyes were just black. And he's like, it freaked us out. One lady who lived there, this is somebody that I actually went to school with as well, she said that she had woke up and her wedding band was actually crushed around her finger. And when her and her boyfriend or fiance, when they moved into that house, they said it was just fight. And then once they moved away, everything was fine. Like there was no fighting. They didn't want to break. So I'm kind of listening to this, what's going on. And the house was very inviting. I felt warm. And I decided to go ahead and start investigating. Well, I was asked, hey, can we investigate with you? We've never done this before. I'm like, well, I mean, you guys live here. You have to deal with it. So why not? Okay, that's fine. And they did. So I wanted to go into the basement first. Right after the get-go got grilled at. Now I got my ex-wife's name coming through one of my devices. My ex-wife's name, I'm not going to say it here. It's not exactly a common name. It's an old name. It's an old school name, but it's very uncommon. Now I was saying my daughter's name, and then then uh, my friend's sister's daughter, and I'm like, this is kind of threatening. Get growled at. We have this going on. So we went upstairs to the second floor, and we're in one of the bedrooms. You could hear the door opening. I'm sorry. It's funny because bells were mentioned. She has bells hanging from every door that leads outside, so she can hear somebody come in.
Right.
The bells were jingling, but the door was not moving. Like nobody walked in. The doors were locked. And you can hear really heavy footsteps. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I'm even like, dude, somebody's in here. She's like, no, nobody's in here. I'm arguing with her. She's like, the doors are locked. Nobody can get in. And then I hear these heavy footsteps that are coming up the stairs. I'm like, what the hell? Whatever this is has no problem letting me know it's there. The footsteps stopped almost at the halfway point. I went downstairs to go check everything out. I'm like, somebody has to be in here. Nobody's in there. I checked the doors. They're locked. So I go home, and I kind of went over the evidence and stuff like that. Started having these nightmares, and they continued for quite some time. And I had another one again. I mean, it was every night. I had another one. I woke up like, I am missing something. What is going on here? So I start going through past evidence or past investigations leading up to the most recent one I had done at the time. And I'm just like, I'm listening to things, and I finally figured out, from Post Town, the name that came through the spirit box, but it claimed it was a demon. And I was like, yeah, whatever, buddy. Asmodeus or Asmodeus. I'm like, all right, I'll go check this out. I go check it out, and I start reading, kind of like where it came from and things like that. I mean, you guys can go and look into that yourselves. Its MO was strange because it makes men go crazy. It destroys relationships. It harms animals. And I mean, basically, it is what I would call the relationship destroyer.
Wow.
That's what I call it. Christians call him the marriage breaking demon. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird because I have these people telling me, here is what's going on with them. These people are all in relationships. And here's what's going on. Nobody knows about this thing. And everything that they're telling me that they're going through is actually happening. I'm like, okay, maybe that's a weird coincidence, but I started digging into it more and more and more and more, and I'm like, now all of a sudden, people who I know, who've run into this thing as well, they're kind of like, I think there's something to this, but they never looked into it too much. Now, by the time I realized I was in trouble, it was already too late. My marriage is now. I'm not going to sit here and specifically blame this entity because we are all responsible for our own actions. But we'll go back into demonic stuff again. When you look at everything, when it comes to demonic, when it comes to a married couple and their family, most marriages end in divorce when it comes to demonic things.
Yep.
Okay? So, and what it does is it finds the weak points. Even if you have a really solid foundation, the relationship is solid. Just a tiny little thing, just a dumb little argument. It'll drive a semi truck through that little crack,
Right.
and now you have separation, isolation going on. So I'm trying to help this person out, and like marriage is going to hell. And every time I went to say something, hey, here's what I run into, here's what's going on, before I even get a chance to argue over the dumbest things, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. This thing is, I know there are always steps ahead, but I just like, witnessing that, being a part of that, I was like,
Mm.
geez, like, I mean, it was just relentless. And it was funny because we had separated and I went to go stay with some friends, and I was telling my friends, kind of what's going on. Like, well, dude, you're stressed out, man. You got a lot going on. That's probably what's happening. Is what's going on with when I go to sleep.
Mm.
I'd hear my ex-wife say, "Hey, Joe," or "Hey, Joe, wake up." I'm like, that would drive me nuts. So I had told them about that. And they're like, no, 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 stress, all this other stuff, which I'm like, yeah, probably. We were watching the movie Titanic, and I hear, "Hey, Joe." I'm like, oh, going crazy. Then I look over at my friend and his wife, and they're staring at me. I'm like, did you guys hear that? They're like, uh-huh. Is she here? I'm like, no, she's not here. They freaked out. And they started having their own issues. And they're like, dude, you gotta go, man. We're like freaked out about this stuff now. This thing's following you
Right.
around. I'm like, well, you guys don't believe in this stuff. And it's like, no, dude, this is not good. So, I went ahead and they came back to Tennessee, but in the meantime, he and his wife were still having issues. They're like, dude, there's something crawling in the basement, and there's something calling my kid's name. And I'm like, dude, just get somebody in there and get rid of it. It's like, you don't believe in any of this crap. What am I supposed to do? Go to a church? I'm like, there you go. There you go. But they hadn't had any problems. This thing, because of the way what was going on, and it was really bothering me. And again, there's a psychological aspect to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I actually stepped away from the paranormal because, one, what good am I going to do anybody else when I'm having my own problems?
Right.
And it took a couple months to get rid of it, but I'm like, no, I need to stay out longer. I have to stay out
Yeah.
because you never know with these things. Now, everything was fine and dandy. I went back to Post Town, no issues. Did these other investigations, no issues. I go again to Post Town, and I meet Eric. I've had investigated with Eric once before prior
Right.
to that, and it's the first time I meet Alex Bob. I'm like, this is cool. But I go there, I'm like, something's off. Something's not right. A very familiar feeling. And I was talking to Daryl, he goes to school, and he's like, yeah, he's like, something just feels weird. Something's off. Anyhow, to keep a long story short, we investigated. It was an event, and Alex and I, we were together with another group of people, and Seven came through the spirit box. I'm like, I don't want to hear that, kind of joking around. And Alex was like, oh, you've encountered him too? I'm like, wait, what? And then he tells me Eric, which Eric has never told me before. He encountered it too.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. And then the SOB's back. And I'm like, so it pops up now. When we go and investigate, sometimes it'll come through, and it's like, oh, it's going to take over the investigation. It's not what we want. So, of course, I look into it further. And there's kind of there are signs to point that this could potentially be the whole demon thing. So I don't believe Zozo's a real demon. I believe, if anything, it's just something saying, "Oh, this is who I am." So there are some interesting links to those, meaning basically it's the same thing.
Right.
Because each when you look into all of that, they both have a very, very similar, very common thing in common.
Right.
So then I talk to other people because they're like, some people don't even know. They're like, dude, I ran into this thing called Seven. And at first I thought it was an operator, through the spirit
Right.
box. And now my marriage, my relationship, this, that, these things are happening. I'm like, well, welcome to Club 7. But they have no idea. They're coming to me telling me what's going on. And I'm like, mm-hmm. Yeah, same story with somebody else. Other people
Wow.
they've run in, they run into it. They know I've run into it, and then they tell me, hey, here's what's going on. I'm like, well, here's what to expect, and they're like, dude, yeah. So it sucks because it likes to make its rounds. Sometimes,
Right.
it'll hit up Eric, or it'll hit up me, or somebody else. Matt has had an encounter with Seven as well at I can't remember the name of the place. What's it called? Revenant Acres. That's where a lot of people have had their encounters with it. I know Miranda Young, Ghost Biker. She
Mhm.
had an encounter with it, and it she actually had teeth marks. Like I saw the pictures on her butt, like nasty teeth marks. I'm like, damn.
It's
And it was,
crazy.
I mean, it was bad. And she had no idea. If I remember correctly, she had no idea until later what had happened.
Right.
So, whatever this is, I don't know if it's actually obvious or not. Everything points to that, but then again, you have no idea if a lot of the names and demons are actually legit names, anyways.
Right.
But it is interesting. But at the end of the day, too, though, ultimately, we are responsible for our own actions when it comes to dealing with stuff like when it comes to if the demonic entity or whatever is running interference, we are responsible
Right.
to resolve and keep ourselves in check.
Right.
So
So what did you eventually have to do to get rid of them, or have
it
you?
doesn't go. It's like it won't go away. It's a pain in the ass when you think it's gone, then all of a sudden, hi, I'm back. I didn't forget about you. So
Nice. Wow. I mean, that's
and
crazy.
and that sucks too because I'm one of those people who are like, you know what? If you have an attachment, I don't good or bad,
Hmm.
don't go investigate. Oh, wow, it dropped out. It's just me. Oh, there we go.
No. No.
It's like, holy crap. Um, anyways,
See, because the funny
don't go.
thing for me is, when I was living on the other side, um, when it brand new house, everything went in, and I called him angry man in my face, yelling. So I was in the house maybe 2 years. Met my now lovely husband. Said, "Do you want to come live in Holland?" I was like, "Heck yeah, I'll come live in Holland." I'm laying in bed, sound asleep. Now, I did tell my husband, I was like, "I'm just telling you, I have no control over this stuff. Stuff happens." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever, whatever." I'm laying in bed, my foot's hanging off, out of the covers, off, off to the side, dangling, and that son of a bitch grabbed my ankle. I was asleep. I was sleeping nicely, and I knew a minute he grabbed my ankle, he followed me to Holland. Of course, I sat up and started yelling, and Ed wakes up and he's like, "I didn't touch you." I'm not talking to you. I was livid. Luckily, he just kind of got, because I didn't know anything about where we were living in Rotterdam. I had no idea it was bombed 3 times, and all this, a lot of residual energy, a lot. And I think he just kind of got pushed out and was like, "Adios, I'm out of here. Thank God." And thank
Right.
God nothing followed me from Holland. Ugh.
Oh, I'm gonna
I
have to
mean,
jump off here.
no, I
It's
know.
it's
I
almost
mean, because
10:30.
I'm getting the countdown from my husband. He's like counting down.
Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta eat dinner. I gotta put gas in the car and hit the road. I gotta
Right.
unfortunately get fast food, and they close down here soon.
Yes, I know.
So,
I appreciate so much your time. I loved hearing you. I've got to have you back on later. When you've settled and
Absolutely.
everything, because there's so much more I want to dig into. I just
Yeah.
enjoyed this immensely. I mean, I
I hope
appreciate
so.
you giving me the time because I was like, oh no, he's moving after we're done. Oh, so
Maybe
I,
next time at a location too.
right. Hey, that would even be better. But that's awesome. I so appreciate it. You have been awesome and so informative. And oh, I just want to dig more and more.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a wonderful night and please, please drive safe. And I want to say thank you so much to everybody that came. I hope you enjoyed this. Um, I love the way Joe investigates and how just calm and mellow and cool he is. So thank you so much. And I hope y'all have a wonderful night. Thank you for coming.